Thank you very much. In the beginning, there was the Latke. And the Latke was with God, and the Latke was God. And the Latke was made flesh and dwelt among us. These are the true and unforgettable words with which Reb Yochanan opens his sacred book. Here, however, we will not enter into the 2,000-year controversy as to whether the Latke was or was not incarnated. You believe that the Latke is fly-shaped? Fine, good for you. Others believe that the Latke is power. Fine, let them enjoy that. Let them enter the kitchen of heaven with whatever Latke they have. Here, we are supposed to do philosophy, not Frumkeit. Our investigation will address the pure Latke, the Latke in and for itself, the Latke für und an sich. Many have sung the praises of the Latke, but none has fared as well as the poet and linguist Edward Stankiewicz. Let me recite a stanza or two from his memorable Ode to the Latke. I quote, "A Jew develops from the cradle a carving for Knish and Knedel. He'll glorify gefilte fish, but I love the Latke dish. No Jew could possibly endorse that yell, 'My kingdom for a horse,' but he would give his shirt and gatkes for a couple of Mame's Latkes." What an ode, huh? Well, all this is true, Chai v'Kayem. Yet, I sincerely believe that all these wonderful praises for the Latke are simply redundant. As my dear colleague Ted Cohen-Godel has already pointed out, I quote, "True philosophy leads to the Latke," end quote. That's Latkeismus-Streit, page 16. The reason being that there are simply no Hamentaschen in the world. Hence, this whole debate is just ridiculous. Much ado about Gurnisht. Note, however, that unlike my aforementioned colleague, I will not only argue that, I quote, "the Latke and the Hamentaschen are not commensurate at the same place, but rather I will provide an irrefutable, sound, and a priori proof of the impossibility of Hamentaschen. You do not need to open the window or even your eyes in order to see that there are no Hamentaschen in the world. Trust your reason, God's image in man, rather than the filthy senses which you share with a rude hippopotamus and the savage porcupine. Moreover, the proof that I'm about to suggest is free from any stupid moral or aesthetic considerations. Frankly, I cannot care less about the alleged illegality of poppy Hamentaschen. You know, leave the war on drugs to the warlords in Washington, D.C. Nor am I bothered by the stomach ache of prune Hamentash consumers. All this is just a brute anthropomorphism. From the point of view of God or nature, this is nothing. As a divine Spinoza says, I quote, "Good, evil, healthy, and unhealthy are just fictions of the human mind." That's the, end quote, appendix to part 1 of the Ethics. Unlike these shaky, softy, and unserious arguments, our proof relies on pure and unadulterated metaphysical principles. Many of you have probably heard about the great principle of sufficient reason. For those of you who haven't, let me explain this noble principle in a few words. The principle simply states that for everything that happens, there must be a reason. Put more rigorously, the principle of sufficient reason demands that, I quote, or here is a rigorous formulation, for every fact F, there must be a reason why F is the case and not the other way around. Hence, There must be a reason why the world exists, and there must be a reason why a cow has 4 legs rather than 3 or 17, and there must be a reason why birds love to release their exertions over my nose, etc. I believe that by now the principle is probably clear enough. Now, one of the immediate corollaries of the principle of sufficient reason is another important metaphysical principle, the principle of the identity of indiscernible. Here is what the principle of the identity of indiscernible states. Okay, again, it's a bit rigorous, but no, don't be afraid. If x and y are different, namely they are not identical, there must be a quality that distinguishes x from y. Now let's take an example. As you may all know, Tinky Winky and Poe, though equally divine, are not identical. Namely, Tinky Winky is not Poe and Poe is not Tinky Winky. Now, according to the noble principle of the identity of indiscernible, there must be a quality that explains why Tinky Winky and Poe are not identical. Now, one such an explanation could be that Poe is red while Tinky Winky is purple. But here we just pointed out qualities which distinguish between the two. Well, that's not so easy. Many metaphysicians would object to the use of colors in order to explain the identity of objects. Colors, it is said, are merely secondary qualities and cannot be used to explain foundational metaphysics. So here's a better explanation. Tinky Winky has the quality of enraging Newt Gingrich and his Republican Scotsy, while Poe doesn't have this quality. And here's a real, deep, and serious metaphysical difference that easily explains why Poe and Tinky Winky are not identical.